but they did inspire me quite a bit. The way I look at the world is today about 700 million people in the Western world have a pretty rich lifestyle. And by that I mean not financially rich. It's energy rich, it's resource rich, it's education rich, it's rich in many ways. And when I look at what it takes to solve those people's aspirations, it's surprising how few efforts actually make a dent. One of the things I learned about doing good was there's lots of things you can do to make yourself feel better. There's very few things you can do to actually make a dent in a problem. So I arbitrarily set a goal many, many years ago that anything I do should affect at least 1 million people. It's pretty arbitrary. And I got, in the late 90s, deeply into microfinance because you could see how that was scalable. What's equally important is to realize that most of these problems are there for a reason, and all the money in the world couldn't solve these problems. Hence, you sort of have to look beyond just financial to say what provides leverage. And that brings me to this CS for social good topic. I think the only large resource multiplier we have is technology. It can multiply resources that we don't otherwise have. And so I get very bullish on technology and social good together, which is sort of, I don't speak very often because I'm too busy, but this is sort of a topic close to my heart. So that's sort of a general point I'd make. I was actually very young when I decided technology was going to be my religion. It's the only religion I have. So let me talk about a couple of things that I actually find important, and these will be just lessons, and maybe we can answer your questions a little bit later. Whenever you can solve a problem by creating a business, you're better off. Word of caution, not all problems can be solved by business, but whenever it's possible to do it by creating a profitable business, you're more likely to have a lot of impact. That's why I fell in love with what Professor Yunus was doing very early on, and the idea that you could scale it. I have a fun story. In probably 2000 or 2001, there was a couple of organizations in India doing microfinance. And they all wanted money, and I gave them all money, and I said the following. If you're going to be a nonprofit, this is a grant. If you're going to be a for-profit, this is equity, and you get to pick what you want. And you don't even have to pick now. You can pick in a year or two or later. I'll give you two examples, but there were others in this. SKS was this microfinance organization that decided very early to be a for-profit. There was another organization called Cash For, run by a very old Princeton professor in Bihar, because he wanted to tackle the toughest part of India with microfinance. They both did well, but the for-profit one had both good and bad about it. It reached 10 times more people. Like it scaled to 6 or 7 million people. The non-profit one reached about 1/10 of those. But the for-profit one then got into a lot of trouble too for practices because people got into maximizing profit. Those are trade-offs. but you can generally have much more impact. And I saw this firsthand. I can go into a lot more detail on that. So let me then talk about a couple of areas. Let me talk about the good news. There are many important areas, and if I were to ask anybody to mention all the important areas in poverty alleviation or doing social good, almost all of them are amenable to technology solutions. Let me talk about a couple. And I don't want to talk too long, I do want to look at the projects. Education is a large problem. The way we are doing education is fundamentally not scalable. So I actually believe using CS, we can build AI systems that personalize education, where students would get a better education, whether it's kindergarten or K through 12 or college, than if they had a personal teacher. I think that's an achievable goal to that. And that's sort of a big advantage of CS and the impact it's having now. In fact, my wife runs a nonprofit called CK12 that's made all the content open. Because the content's open and there's questions on every piece of content, and because there's questions and there's probably 300,000 questions, there's hundreds of millions of answers to those questions. We have the data set to actually say, when a student's solving a particular problem, where are they having trouble? What do they understand? What don't they understand? Far better than a human teacher could understand, because you're even measuring how many seconds it takes somebody to click on an answer, how long they're thinking about it, what kinds of mistakes they're making. In healthcare, I've often joked in 20 years, I'll probably have a better cardiologist in a village in India than I can get at Stanford. And the reason is AI systems will do cardiology and all of medicine better than any human can. But Stanford will probably still have a human cardiologist, and so it can't do as well. By and large, and we've seen this debate in driving cars, like driverless cars do better than humans in driving and lower accident rates, especially if you imagine 20 years from now. So if you look at education, if you look at healthcare, they have, and those are two of the really large areas, and lead to real empowerment of people. They have technology solutions, and the technology solutions are almost certainly better than if you took human solutions to the problem. If I look at it, the world differently, energy is one of the largest single problems on the planet, because energy means food, energy means water, energy means housing, it means everything else. There is only a technology solution to that problem. It's probably only partially CS, not all CS, but